Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. As always, thank you for joining us. Cohen lies, Biden lies. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, consider what the jurors who've had to sit there in Manhattan in that courtroom for 4 weeks have likely learned about the prosecution's star witness. He's a convicted perjurer and a tax evader. He secretly tapes and doesn't get permission from his clients. He lied on the stand about the reason he had a call with Trump's security. And now, on top of all of that, he's admitted that he's a thief. Yeah. The fixer inflated a contractor's invoice to the Trump organization from $20K to $50K and pocketed the difference. Now, I was wondering when we were going to start hearing evidence of an actual crime at this trial, and today was it. Now, any legal expert worth his or her salt would at this point know that the credibility of Michael Cohen is cooked.
The fact that he was never charged with larceny is important because stealing $60,000 through fraud, which would be larceny in New York State, is more serious of a crime than falsifying business.
I'm shocked that we are hearing it for the first time on day 3 of cross-examination of Michael Cohen, that the prosecution did not take the sting out, did not front it, because it goes to the heart of the actual case.
To show that he actually stole from the Trump organization, even as they were structuring a deal to pay him $35,000 a month, is an enormous big deal.
Larceny, embezzlement, perjury, oh my. An opportunist, a grifter, a man who got squeezed by prosecutors and essentially just started spewing whatever he thought would help him get reduced jail time. What were Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo thinking? Well, we know what they were thinking, because they had to know about all of this larceny by Cohen, and if they didn't, they should be sanctioned for gross negligence. Unfortunately, though, there's no mechanism for sanctioning pundits and cable TV anchors for rank stupidity.
When Cohen was asked about that on redirect by the prosecution, it didn't really sound like stealing $30,000. It sounded a lot like Michael Cohen doing the little that he could within that calculation to rebalance the bonus he thought he deserved.
He was just rebalancing the bonus. That's not theft. Well, you knew things were in meltdown mode at MSNBC when they decided to ditch talking about the actual case, the statute, the elements of the crime, and start talking about who was with Trump in the courtroom today.
Chuck Zito, an ex-Hells Angel who's done prison time for drug abuse. Bernie Kerik, who's also done prison time. It was like Thug Central. Boris, the attorney, Matt Gaetz, who's been on the ethics investigation. It's like he's trying to point out that this is going to be Thug Nation. We're outlaws. Outlaws are above the law. Everything about them is like, no, we're above it. We're the outlaws here.
Is there some aromatherapy gift basket or maybe a spa day that we could send over to those kids? I'm beginning to think they all need a little self-care maybe to clear their minds. It's just hard to believe that at least a few members of this jury won't see the obvious at this point.
No one would ever even consider bringing a case like this because it's unprecedented. And in my view, you don't test the new legal theories from the DA's office when you're dealing with the President of the United States, a presidential election, in what has to be described as one of the worst witnesses anyone has ever seen.
And then today, Juan Merchan repeatedly sustained the prosecution's objections to the defense's second witness, Robert Costello. And he was testifying to the conversations he had with Cohen back in 2018 that included conversations about whether the government had anything on President Trump. Well, of course, Merchan, he let Stormy Daniels go on and on with hours of prejudicial testimony, including about the Trump encounter. It had nothing to do with the case, and yet he allowed this to go in before he finally stepped in and said, oh, you can't consider that to the jury. Oh, thanks. Judge Merchan should be ashamed of himself for letting the spectacle of an election interference case get this far. When the defense rests and the prosecution rests, Trump's team will file a motion for what's called a directed verdict, and it should be granted. Now, for those of you who don't know, and there's no reason you should, a directed verdict is a ruling entered by a trial judge after concluding that there's no sufficient basis in the evidence presented for a reasonable jury to reach a different conclusion. So a fair and a decent jurist, a judge, would end this travesty as soon as possible. But of course, we're not going to hold our breath. Now, Democrats like to be known for their firsts. First Hispanic this or first LGBTQ that. But this is the worsts. The worst case brought by the worst DA with the worst star witness before the worst judge to help the worst sitting president in U.S. history, Joe Biden. And speaking of Biden, he and Cohen have a lot in common, don't they? Both are grifters, both are liars. Biden's grift, siphoning off his family members as they cashed in overseas, it was slightly more clever and nuanced than maybe Cohen's, but Biden's lies are nonstop and just as glaring. Look, Biden lies about inflation.
I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%.
That was a lie. It was about 1.7 to 1.9%. He lies about his family.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China.
He lies about his own personal experience.
I've spent more time in the Bethel AME Church in Wilmington, Delaware than I have than most people I know, black or white, have spent in that church. Because that's why I started no, I'm serious. I started a civil rights movement.
I'm serious. He lies about America being systemically racist.
Black men are being killed in the street. We bear witness. For me, that means to call out the poison of white supremacy, to root out systemic racism.
All to burnish his own chances at staying in power. These are wicked, awful, and cynical lies. For years now, we've watched the most powerful people in this country lie about President Trump, lie about this country, and even lie about indisputable established facts, all to gain more power for themselves. But the latest polls indicate that the voters are tired of being lied to and are ready to hear leaders who tell them the truth. And if the jurors in New York feel the same way, then the Democrats' plans for this trial will really have backfired on them. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.